So we have one big problem in this industry is obviously the energy consumption of our streaming services and streaming devices, right? So there's a huge environmental impact of these services. 3 to 4%, depending on where you look at it, of the media industry is responsible for the CO2 emissions worldwide. So there's a lot of progress happening. Every year, IBC, after going, there's more and more talks and more things happening in that aspect. A lot of us here, the champions, the participants, are working on either on better understanding the viewers or working at better understanding the products and services that we're making to reduce energy consumption. But there's obviously a lack of unified approach, right? There's a lot of great things happening individually, but not enough of projects that are happening in a unified approach. So we're inspiring ourselves from this shared responsibility model where we're not only looking at media organizations, but also the cloud network participants as well as the viewer. And through this unified approach, we hope to solve this issue.
Exactly 1 minute. Huh? Spot on a minute. So challenges and the objectives. We've got a unified philosophy of if you can't measure something, you can't improve it. Right, Simon? A measurement of power and environmental impact is extremely challenging. I think that's a commonly agreed concern there. So working and building on the activities of organisations like Green Streaming and Impact, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here significantly, putting a framework in place that allows cross-organisation understanding and framework for building on that. Taking a best-of-breed approach to this, so making sure we're using the right tools and the right measurement techniques, that we have confidence in those metrics, and more importantly, not just being an engineering problem and an engineering tool, but enabling the executive teams to articulate the environmental impact of the industry, and of course, very importantly, allowing end consumers to understand what that means as well. Let's not worry about that one. So from an innovation perspective, the top line here, the grey, is the media supply chain. We're missing the end consumer device on here, but we really are looking at the end-to-end and putting telemetry in place and measurement processes in place so we can clearly and accurately measure what is happening from an environmental perspective across the supply chain. And that's great because you've got a baseline measurement, but we then need to start to look and say, well, actually, working with progressive, sustainability-focused vendors, what can we do to make changes to this? Maybe we'll look at peer-to-peer delivery rather than direct CDN, and what is the cause and effect? We should have a little video playing here, hopefully with a mouse zooming around this screen that I can't see. There we go. Let's press it one more time. No, we're going to go back. There we go. Having the capability to look and make changes within the environment so we can start to say, well, actually, from a baseline perspective, this is where you are. But if you change to an eco-friendly video player, we can see across the chain how the environmental aspects actually reduce or maybe get worse, right? But unless you have that baseline measurement, we can't start to understand how we can improve things. And all of that ultimately results in a test lab for experimentation and a test harness that we can take to IBC and we can present to the exec and we can use within the engineering and we can give to customers that educate them on how changing variables within the supply chain, how that affects the environmental impact. So ultimately, we educate people so we as an industry can understand what the environmental impact is, and then we start to address and fix that.
Go through the next one very quickly to leave time for brilliant champions we have supporting us, RTL, ITV, and the BBC, and then many other participants that have worked on projects or features that are helping with energy consumption of streaming device or the supply chain. And we're looking for more, essentially, more broadcasters, more technology vendors, ideally cloud providers as well, and the cherry on the top would be device manufacturers that have an interest in sustainability, right? That's very important.
And I think the particularly unique thing about the Accelerator program is we can do this together. This isn't something that any of us can solve individually. This is something we have to solve as an industry. We're on table 3. If you're interested and you want to get involved, please come along, tap your badge, have some conversations. But we really want to drive this as a cross-industry initiative.
Thank you, Tim. And just to close, Tim and I were talking earlier about the current way we distribute our content through DTT. And we know what the energy footprint of that is because we get an electricity bill every month. But as we increasingly move to IP distribution, we have very little knowledge, very fuzzy understanding of our energy footprint. Stood here, this is a great site because from Greenwich in the east through to Heathrow in the west is one of the highest densities of data centres anywhere in the world. Currently, those data centres are consuming at least 10% of the UK's electricity, and the network is 75%, 3/4 media content. It's audio and video. So our impact in this world is really significant, and yet our understanding, our ability to understand it end to end and have some agency about making changes, understand those and improving that is relatively limited. So I hope everybody will engage with this challenge, because I think it's a really important thing, not just for our industry, but actually for the planet. And I know that sounds a bit cheesy, but I think it's true. Thank you.